Welcome to Haunt Weekly.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jonathan.
I'm Crystal.
And this is Haunt Weekly, a weekly podcast on the attraction and entertainment community. Whether you're an actor, owner, or just plain aficionado, we aim to be a podcast for you. And we return to you this week with a very serious topic. We discussed this in super brief format a few weeks ago after the news came out. But this week we have a very, very special and a very important guest with us, Maddie Rachael, former employee, I believe, of the Bloodshed Brothers haunt and the centerpiece of some very unfortunate and very disturbing news that came out 2 weeks ago regarding the Bloodshed Brothers. Mm-hmm. And we brought her on today where she asked to come on, actually. We didn't bring nothing. She asked to talk about this, and we're hoping to discuss not just what happened to her, but also some ideas and thoughts on how other haunt owners and haunt operators can prevent exactly this from happening. So, Maddie, thank you very much for coming on.
Hi, of course. Thank you guys for having me.
Yes,
So there's a question that we always ask to start with of every new guest. Mm-hmm. How long have you been in the haunted house industry, and how did you get started?
Oh, shoot. I think we're probably at 15 years now, if not 14. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I started off at a local charity haunted house that was pretty close to where I lived growing up. And they would take volunteers from the local high schools and middle schools to get your community service hours. Because I don't know if it's the same for you guys, but I grew up in California. You needed community service hours to graduate high school. So
we did not need that, but I had various organizations I was a member of that did, so I know the concept.
Yeah.
And so it was just some of the private schools here that do.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's true. And some of the colleges do that too here.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's not a foreign concept. That's interesting that to graduate high school in California, community service hours. Mm-hmm. I mean, sorry, continue.
But that's pretty much it.
Okay.
I started because a friend told me about it, and I had gone a couple times myself, just because it was a big local Halloween thing.
Yeah, and honestly, I would have absolutely, if I had needed public service hours, I would have absolutely murdered to be able to do inside of a haunted house. That would have been the perfect way to get those hours in.
Yeah, it was pretty unique, and a lot of my friends who were at school with me, they were like, "That's a little weird. I don't know if I would be doing that." And I'm like, "Nah, you guys don't know. This is fun."
You don't know how to have fun and get work done at the same
exactly.
time. That's your problem. That's a you thing. That's a you problem. But yeah. But anyways, the reason we're talking today, though, is you were working for the Bloodshed Brothers as part of their Field of Screams haunted attraction. How did you meet them? How did you get connected with them?
So I was working at that haunted attraction already.
Oh.
It's technically it was owned by, the venue itself was a minor league baseball stadium for the San Diego Padres. It was called the Lake Elsinore Storm, was the baseball team. And I was working at that haunted house already for a few years before they were hired on. So it wasn't technically their haunt. They were just kind of hired on by the venue to just kind of operate things. And so when they started working there, it was really exciting for everybody. Everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, these guys, like, they put up a YouTube video about our haunt. They came to go see us, like, blah, blah, blah. They're going to be running things." Like, I was shoot, when they first started working there, I think I was maybe 14, 15. I think I was 15. But I mean, nothing happened until I was 16, but yeah, they were hired on to an event that I was already working at.
Okay. So yeah, I know you've been asked this question a lot, but the news has been everywhere about, I don't know how to quite phrase this, about what happened there, specifically the quote-unquote, as the Patch.com article put it, the quote-unquote sex ring at the Field of Screams. I don't know how apt that descriptor is not, but and you were directly involved with one half of the Bloodshed Brothers directly. How did that begin, and what happened exactly?
So I was working at that haunt, and this was over the summer, before the Halloween season, and we got the news that they were hired on and that they were going to be at the stadium, setting things up and building, and that they were taking volunteers to come out and help. So myself and a few of my friends went out to go help them because we had already been working at the event and we kind of knew, our way around the place. So we just went to go help. And it just started from there. They were both really friendly with all of the underage volunteers. A little bit flirty at times. But I mean, the young teenage girls would eat it up because, oh my gosh, our bosses are giving us so much attention. This is so cool. We're so mature. So it just kind of started from there.
And like you said, everybody was really excited to have them come on and be a part of the project. So there's probably a little bit of starstruckness too.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were all, and when they took over managing Field Screams, they were already pretty significant celebrities in the haunt community. Their YouTube channel had attracted a lot of attention, I know, within the haunt community by that point already. So, yeah, I'm not surprised there was some starstruckness there too.
Yeah. I mean, I myself didn't know who they were until they put out the video reviewing my particular haunt. But I mean, my friends knew who they were and everything, and everybody was all really excited. So of course I was,
yeah,
swept in with it all.
Yeah, it's easy to see how that could happen. So what were some of the first warning signs that something was amiss? And I know a lot of this is the power of hindsight too.
Yeah. How do we feel about curse words?
Oh, curse words, go for it. Go crazy.
Okay. Because
we have an explicit tag for a reason. Go fun.
There's one particular instance that sticks out in my brain. And of course, when I was, 15, I didn't think anything about it. But this was actually, so my involvement and my legal battle, if you will, was with Zachary, not Jeremy. But this particular instance actually happened with Jeremy back in the day. We were back at the baseball stadium. We were setting things up. We were building whatever. And just out of the blue, he looks at me and he goes, "Maddie, if you were 18, I'd fuck the shit out of you." And I was, oh,
wow.
All right. But that was honestly the first my personal experience with either of them. That was the first instance. But I was seeing someone at the time, I was in a relationship with someone who I was in high school with. It was nothing. It was literally my first relationship, super innocent, not serious. And I was like not okay with it because it felt like, I was like, oh, I have a boyfriend, like don't. And then when said boyfriend broke up with me, I was getting texts from both Zach and Jeremy like, "Oh, you're such a catch. He didn't deserve you. Blah, blah, blah. I treat you so much better." Me being a 15-year-old girl.
And how old were Zachary and Jeremy at this time?
I think they are 8, almost 9 years older than I am. Okay. So I was 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 24, 24, 23, 24.
Okay.
I think on the official arrest record and all that, I was 16 and Zach was 24, I think was the official thing.
So you mentioned in your email some things that people could look for as far as grooming. Would you like to explain what grooming is and what some of the signs are?
Yeah, I wish I wanted to be more prepared for this. I wanted to have notes and everything written down. Grooming is essentially a person who is an adult, not necessarily being overtly sexual with a minor, but just treating them as though they are an adult and not in a good way, not in a,
letting you make your own decisions kind of way.
Yeah. It's just, molding them essentially to suit whatever it is that you want out of them, whether it's, sexual. It usually is sexual, or, what have you. But yeah, I think molding is probably a better definition.
Mm-hmm.
And the term grooming has always been a weird one for me because
Yeah, I think of
a pet, you groom pets.
Yeah.
I know. It's
Don't groom people.
Word. It's such a weird word. But warning signs for sure. I mean, in my case, especially, would have been Zach and Jeremy making, sexual jokes in front of the kids, bringing coolers of alcohol to the stadium and, letting kids have some while they were back there because their parents weren't around, case in point. Just stuff like that was going on. And there were several other adult witnesses there who saw this behavior going on and frankly did nothing to stop it, whether it was other volunteers or the actual stadium staff of the venue themselves would do nothing. And frankly, it is to my belief that there are a couple stadium staff members that were in on it as well, as the investigation is still pending. So it's no surprise nobody stopped it.
That is one of the things that really was striking to me about this was, yes, what happened is horrible, but as you just noted, it required the silence or the complacency of so many adults. It is mind-boggling because this is not a small haunt, from what I understand about it. This is a large, like you said, it's a baseball stadium.
They did pretty good numbers there.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not even going to lie. They were pretty successful.
Mm-hmm.
This is not like our home haunt where we have maybe 15 people working on it. This is a big haunt with a lot of adults around, adults who could have, should have seen something, said something, or gotten involved in some way, but didn't either because they didn't fully realize what was happening maybe, or they...
There are a couple of women that I've kind of connected with after the fact who were around at the time and kind of witnessed some of it happening, who were at the time as well. And they just, from their point of view, the way that they've described it, Zach especially, but Zach and Jeremy had such a weird manipulative grip on the narrative that everybody just figured it was okay. At the time, he even had people believing that my parents were okay with it, which they weren't. They had no idea. We went through such great lengths to hide this from them because my parents are very strict and religious, and if they would have found out at the time, it would have been over for me. It would have been over for him. Like, don't even get me started. But he even had people believing that my parents were okay with it, which, okay, like let's say my parents were okay with it. Does permission from my mommy make statutory rape okay? Like,
no.
It's so incredible, this weird twist he had on just what he had people believing back then and now still to this day. But
there's one lesson we've learned over the past 6 years or so. It's that charismatic people have a way of controlling that is very difficult to understand or even, identify. We've seen that so many times. So yeah.
And we have a question in the comments section.
In the chat. And
that's okay. I can't see the chat from my.
It's okay.
I'll relay.
She's your moderator. She got you.
Yeah. No. Someone's asking, did no one say anything? And if so, did any retaliation happen against the person who said something?
No. I do think that my best friend at the time may have said something to the authorities, and I don't want to say her name, but
no, that's fine.
When I was first talking to the investigator, I was in his office, and he pulled out these weird, like, mugshot looking pictures of Zach, Jeremy, and Morgan. I don't know if we know who Morgan is. We can touch on that in a second. But
no, we've not touched on him in this chat. No.
Okay, so he pulled out these weird, like, mugshot looking pictures of the three of them and had me identify that these were the three men in question. and then he asked me if I knew who this girl's name was. And I was like, yeah, that was my best friend at the time. And he was like, okay, that we're just, we're just following up on something from 2015. And he just left it at that. Because this was 2020 when I was talking, or 2019 or 2020 when I was talking to the investigator. So I believe she may have tried to do something back in 2015. But other than that, no, absolutely nobody said anything, did anything, no backlash on her. Of course, nobody knew that she did it.
And obviously nothing came of it. So
yeah,
at the time,
nothing came of it at all. There was one day in 2016, and this is all, everything that I'm sharing has fully been on like the court record. It's in my interview with the investigator, all of that. I was at the supermarket and I get a phone call from Jeremy, and this was after I had been fully removed from the family and everything. Like I was not, around anymore. And Jeremy called me asking to lie essentially if I were contacted by law enforcement because he thinks that they're looking into him. And I was like, well, no, I'm not going to do that, but have a nice day. I was never contacted. Nothing ever came of it, but I think something was budding, and it just never was able to gain enough traction until, I came back and followed up back in 2019 or whenever that was.
Wow. And like we said, that still boggles my mind how many people had to be aware, maybe not the full extent of what was going on. They might have only known tiny little pieces here and there. They might have known about the alcohol. They might have known about the inappropriate jokes. They might have known, little bits and pieces, but absolutely did or said nothing, either not understanding the impact or, I don't know, just not doing it. Now, you mentioned an additional name there, so we should definitely be discussing him.
Oh, Morgan. Yes.
He, I thought it was Morgan, but I wasn't going to make an ass of myself.
He was an associate of theirs at the stadium. He was working with them. They were like really close friends, the whole shebang. He's actually, he was put, so it's interesting. When Zach was initially booked, they didn't put him into custody at the time because of COVID and like county jail restrictions or whatever. So they booked him out of custody while the investigation was pending. But Morgan was actually booked a couple years prior. And he spent the entire time in jail while the investigation was pending. But his sentencing is coming up in a couple weeks, I think. He is facing 215 years. But just same stuff. He was working at the stadium, found girls from said attraction, brought them home, and he was the same age as Zach and Jeremy, if not like a year older, younger.
Yeah, and he was doing it recurringly, was one of the things.
Yeah, see, his whole thing is a bunch of victims came forward for him. So he got a count for each victim, whereas in my case, I was the only victim who initially came forward about Zach. So he just got me. After the fact, though, a couple more victims have come forward too. So that's all pending.
God.
And these other victims, I didn't even know that they existed. I was just fending for myself and knowing what I knew about Morgan and kind of adding to that case and helping with that investigation. But after the fact, I found out about these other girls, and it just shakes me to my core daily.
It's still mind-boggling to me. I mean, that this went on for as long as it did, because this went on over a period of about 7 years or so, according to what I understood from the article and other sources.
Yeah,
that is not a short amount of time. That is.
I personally was with Zach for 4 years, so it was a long thing.
Wow, and like I said, the number of people who had to have known and didn't say anything about even what little bit they knew, it's crazy. And honestly, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say that the people who did have like full intimate knowledge of the relationship and its goings on, and in a way helped hide it back then, did come forward with me as witnesses for the current investigation, and they've been incredibly helpful and made up for absolutely everything, in my opinion. Nothing prevented it from happening, but they are doing their best to go forward from here.
That's good, at least.
That's good. Yeah. And like we discussed, obviously both Zachary and Jeremy are very charismatic people, and who knows what kind of spell they held over those individuals as well. I mean,
exactly. And it's like the current spell that they still have on some individuals, even after the article and the court documents have been published and everything, people still don't believe that this is true. And there are people out there calling me the next Amber Heard, and just oh my God, you wouldn't even believe it. And it's just like people who don't even know Zach and Jeremy in real life are defending them because of these boys they saw on the YouTubes, or so they must be good boys,
Yeah, that's insane. And
oh my
and everyone God. Believe the victim. I mean, come on, people, it's easy.
And I was fully prepared for any kind of backlash. I knew it was gonna come, but
yeah, wow. I know this makes for a poor podcast, but you've rendered me speechless. And the backlash, but I mean, I guess, it's one of those things where I should have seen it coming, but it's still difficult to believe when you hear it.
Yeah.
And it's still difficult to grok, especially saying that, like, you're the next Amber Heard. Obviously, that's not the case here.
It's stupid. I know.
It's not even a good analogy for a variety of reasons. It's just so... Oh my God!
I don't know if you guys saw the post that Alan Hops made about it.
No, I did not. No.
But Alan Hops made a post just basically condemning the behavior, and the haunted house community needs to do better. Blah blah blah.
Oh, well, I did see that one actually. Yeah, no, I do remember that one.
Yeah, and one of Zach's family members, I believe it was Jeremy's wife, got on there and was just completely, tearing me down, calling me a liar, calling me slanderer, just, every name in the book. And I saw that comment because a friend pointed it out to me, and I went in there and I replied to her comment with a screenshot of a text that she sent me a couple years ago begging me to not follow through with the investigation because Zach is guilty and she didn't want anything to happen to the family. I was like, oh, this you?
And receipts.
Yeah. Wow.
Wow, I just... The horribleness of some people, and it's truly, truly mind-boggling to me. And one of the things from the Alan Hops post I really like, and this is something we're going to get into in a little bit, is if you're a haunted attraction owner, once again, it doesn't matter if you're like us and you run a tiny home haunt that has like 15 people, or you're running a mega haunt with hundreds and hundreds of actors, this should scare the shit out of you. This whole story should scare the absolute abject shit out of you. And if it does not, you're not paying attention. It's that simple.
Yeah, because I mean, this is something that people knew was going on. And do you know if the haunt owners, the actual people who owned the stadium before the Bloodshed Brothers were brought in, if they ever got wind of any of this?
I know that the reporter reached out to them for comment when she was writing the article. Didn't get anything back from them, but I don't think they were made aware. But I mean, like I said a little bit earlier, I do think a couple of the guys that were running the attraction from the stadium side of things were, involved as well to a certain extent. So,
okay,
I don't know how much good it would have done.
Yeah, but so what I'm thinking is that haunt owners be aware that if that there could be something like this going on that you're not going to be made aware of because people aren't speaking up. And thank you for doing so.
Yeah, thank you very, very much for doing so, for doing podcasts like this one.
Yeah.
And getting the word out there because
yeah, and if it is the haunt owner that's the problem, then we've got to find some kind of way.
Yeah. And
to
that's
help
one of
people.
the challenging things here. And this was something that Maddie pointed out to me in the emails exchange we had before this. Was one, these are the managers of the haunt, the operators of the haunt, and nobody involved had any kind of prior criminal record.
Yeah.
So criminal background checks, the usual stuff we bring up is saying, hey, this is what should be mandatory, and they should. That doesn't change that, but it would not have resolved the situation.
Right.
And so I know one thing we've been talking about back and forth is trying to rack our brains and find ways in which haunt owners and haunt operators can reduce the chance of something. I mean, I doubt you could ever eliminate it, to be honest, and that's just a frightening truth there.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, you can only reduce it. You can't eliminate it, but you can greatly reduce it. Things that haunt owners can do. And, I know we had a lot of, we talked back and forth about that, but one of the ideas that Crystal and I have been on a lot about is having an anonymous way for actors to report issues to someone in management.
Or even a third party.
Or even a third party, yeah.
To someone in management, like a website for reporting things that doesn't share the information publicly, obviously, but would be able to get in touch with the managers, owners.
And in a situation like what we were talking about, this could be a way for someone, for example, who saw them bring the coolers of alcohol for the underage teens to report that and, protect themselves in the process if they feared any reprisal. And they might not know the full extent of how deep this goes. They probably don't, but they might start the investigation that could uncover that. Something like that was useful. What are your thoughts on something like that?
I was thinking about that earlier too, because you mentioned that in the email. I definitely think a third party would be the best route in that type of situation. And that's actually something that I've been kind of tossing back and forth with a few other female friends of mine in the industry. Just getting something like that set up, some sort of organization, some sort of victim advocacy group in the haunted house community. That's just there as a resource for people to anonymously report things like that. That can be looked into from people who are not directly involved, who are not going to try to cover up or protect or defend, anyone. And also just to be a resource for the victims as well, if they need it, to find any sort of counseling or even just like people on the inside like myself who are, because a big thing that's been going on throughout this whole process of me coming forward, I've been to therapy. I've done the whole thing. I have healed more or less. I'm doing really well for myself, all things considered. And I have the strength in my arsenal to be able to share some with other victims of similar crimes, similar situations. So I get messages literally daily. I get messages from other people in the community who I have no idea who they are. They don't know me other than they just read my story because I'm so vocal about it. And they, just share their similar experience because it's so rampant within the haunted house community. It's heartbreaking. It really is. But I want to be that pillar of strength for those who need it right now.
Yeah. Maybe what there needs to be is some kind of, and I don't know if it has to be haunt industry specific, but some kind of, a third party nonprofit entity type thing to field those types of anonymous complaints and concerns. And to do that, maybe that could be something that could come out of this, or maybe something like that already exists, and I'm just unaware of it completely.
I mean, like local non-emergency law enforcement.
Yeah, and that's not bad. That's actually a valid point. Everybody, haunt industry or not, should look up and learn the non-emergency number to the local police department. I guarantee they have one. And it is very, very important that you look it up and at least have access to it, because you never know when you're going to need it. Obviously, if it's an emergency, call 911 or 999 or whatever it is in your country. But look up the non-emergency numbers for just this reason, for just this type of thing. It's very important.
And everything can be anonymous through there, too. When going through the whole thing, they gave the option to be anonymous. I think I'm actually on the court record as Jane Doe, like officially. So, I mean, yeah, everything can be anonymous through there. So
that's a good idea and good point too. So maybe that could be the resource then, especially for stuff that requires, legal intervention or police intervention. Obviously, you wouldn't report the actor that was a little too aggressive with a customer or made the little kid cry there. We might need another process to anonymously report that type of stuff. But for this type of thing, yeah, that's a great resource and a great idea.
Yeah. And, there have been multiple stories over the years about either actors in haunted houses being assaulted or assaulting customers as they come through that we reported on.
Yeah. That's been one of the sadly recurring themes in our industry, has been exactly that.
Yeah. At least a couple of times every season.
Yeah.
It reaches news that reaches us.
Now, you had one idea I really loved, and I think might have actually helped in this situation, and that is training, especially for like mid-level managers and up, on what signs to look for, and when it comes to grooming / molding or inappropriate, what types of behavior they should be looking for. Do you have any thoughts there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that definitely would have helped in my situation for sure. I mean, the mid-level management, I mean, you had like your lead makeup artist, your head costuming, different people in different positions who would have been able to catch on that something was happening for sure. But honestly, a big red flag, a big warning sign, no grown adult should be very friendly and chummy with a child in the first place, especially at a place of work. They shouldn't be, joking around with these kids like it's their buddy that they went to high school with back in the day. And just like going places alone with the kids and like, oh, come with me over here. We're going to go down to the storage shed and get something, like, just stuff like that. It could have been like, hey, whoa, maybe don't do that, or take someone else with you, or.
So like a buddy system for the underage people who are working at different haunts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I know in our haunt, we do have underage people working, but I think in all but one case, they work with their parent.
Yeah. Yeah, and she works directly with me.
Yeah, and she works directly with you, and that's it. Yeah. So, yeah, but it's...
another thing that honestly, it kind of sucks, but it might be a good, good idea. I mean, I know a lot of haunts can't swing it, especially maybe home haunts, stuff like that, but larger scale haunts to that end who can probably afford to be their actors, just don't hire minors in the first place.
Yeah.
Just don't. If you can avoid it, don't.
Yeah.
For those on the video, a wild snowball has appeared.
Yeah. But no, yeah, we've talked about that multiple times, because there's no reason that a pro haunt should be hiring minors and should not be paying their actors, because that's another thing that they do, is they work with a lot of volunteers.
And we say this, but the local water park near us, and I know it's not a haunted attraction, but a lot of the same issues come up with employment.
Yeah.
Just posted that they are hiring people as young as 15.
Yeah. And that's
because their pay is shit, and that's the legal age that they can get people for summer hours.
Oh my God, I was going to say, don't you need a worker's permit at that age?
I think for summer hours, I think for school, you're fine for 15.
Yeah, they're basically hiring them during the day on weekends.
But personally, it's so much hassle hiring a 15-year-old because of the limited hours, and even if you don't need a worker's permit, it's going to be a bunch of bullshit that I don't want to deal with ever. So I would never hire a 15-year-old, definitely.
Yeah.
And I would not want to hire minors either. And I mean, like I said, our home haunt, we have basically like 3 families who seem to do it together, and so a couple of the daughters do work for us, but like I said, they work directly with Crystal, and they are never alone with anyone, honestly.
Well, as of this moment right now, inside the haunt, we have all women.
That's true. I've not realized that.
Nope, one boy.
Oh, don't we still have Matt?
Yes.
It's easy. Sorry. Matt is easily. I'm sorry, Matt, but you are easy to blink out of the mind. Sometimes.
No.
Sorry, Matt.
And I'm not saying that women cannot be predators.
They absolutely can.
That's not what I'm saying either.
I don't know if you saw in the article, there is a woman who is being convicted or whatever throughout the thing, along with Morgan. She was like an accomplice of his. So, I mean, women aren't exempt from this.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the other thing is, in the tight confines of our haunt, nobody's ever alone at all. Ever.
But with back to your point, large haunts definitely should be hiring adults.
Yeah.
For sure.
If at all possible.
Yeah. And charity haunts should be making, or could take more steps to make sure that their actors are safe and that their staff is safe.
And to be frank, the stadium didn't have any sort of regulation over anything. I mean, there were kids there all hours of the summer helping them put together the haunted house. No sort of sign in or out process. Their parents would just come and drop them off because they're like, oh, I'm going to go help work at the haunted house. And
it's like a daycare, but I'm going to get power tools.
Parents would just come drop them off. And I mean, there would be times literally where we would like finish early. And we would just, myself and a couple other girls would go home with Zach and Jeremy. And then they could bring us back to the stadium so our parents could pick us up later. There was zero supervision, zero regulation, even when the haunt had its like actual operating hours, not just like the build times during the summer. Nothing, just free roam.
Did anything happen on the haunt grounds?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the reason she raises that is because one of the things we've been huge evangelists of on this podcast. In fact, everyone's getting sick of hearing it. So sing along if you know the song in the chat. Have full security camera coverage of your haunt.
That's a terrible song.
Yes, it is.
I love this song. Turn it up.
But yeah, because we're big advocates, of having complete security cam coverage of the haunt, including behind the scenes areas.
Yeah, and what were you saying?
Sorry, she was saying turn it up.
I was saying I love
that. But no, I've said that so many times, and yet every year something happens at a haunt, and we don't know who's telling the truth because they don't have a security camera in that.
Yeah, that would have been good.
If nothing happens on premise, you can see when people come and go. You can record what's happening.
Yeah.
And things like that.
Yeah, because, you're not going to have cameras in, dressing areas and bathrooms because that would be just wrong.
But you can have cameras right outside those areas to see who goes in and when.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the crimes that would take place at the actual event, not, their place of residence or anything, but at the actual venue would in the maze before we would open, or in the sound and lighting room, all places where cameras very well could have been useful, And
they were practical, they were useful. And here's another lesson learned from this. If you do have good security camera coverage, make sure they're going 24/7. Yes, most of the time, because a lot of people will turn on their cameras as they open. And that's the action time, but reality is bad things can happen at your haunt anytime people are there.
As long as someone has a key to get there after hours.
Yeah, absolutely. turn it on and make sure that you don't have they don't have the ability to turn them off.
Mm-hmm.
Like only whoever's in charge of the security cameras, it's that person, and that's the end of it. And I don't know. And like I said, so much of this case is complicated because it was the managers, it was the operators that were doing it. And so, yeah, I can say great things like have 24/7 security camera coverage and always have them on, and it sounds really good. And in a lot of situations, it would be good if it's not the owner or manager, doing it. That's the problem. But when they have the ability to go in there and switch it off at a moment's notice,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of blunts the usefulness of that. And that's I guess that's what's so frightening to me about this,
Mm-hmm.
is that this was the operators. These were the managers. These were the people running the show. And
Right.
that gives them so much power, and all the tools we can go over to minimize this can't address that.
Why they were able to get away with it so easily and so extensively.
Yeah, between being apparently very charming and charismatic people and having that level of power, it's easy to see. It's easier to see and think about how it could have happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so I am definitely huge on security camera coverage, but I also think a lot of the things that, like the inappropriate jokes of the minors, we need to be in a society, we need to be a community that does not tolerate that.
Yeah.
We had a customer behave very, very inappropriately with some of our underage actors.
Mm-hmm.
And we threw him out and trespassed him from the property. He's not allowed back ever.
Correct.
He is one of only 2 people we've ever done that to.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't regret either of those trespasses, but yeah, it's such a frustrating thing because you said it right. This is a big problem within the haunted attraction industry, and it's a bigger problem than people want to or do realize.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's something that I've been seeing pop up a lot with the online conversation regarding this, the article and
yeah,
people are like, I don't want anyone to think that this is what the haunted house industry is because this is such an isolated incident, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, it's not. It happens everywhere.
and
I
I
do
guess
not have a single female friend in this industry who is, like a young woman who has not had a similar experience in one of their haunted houses. Nationwide, this is a huge issue.
yeah, I guess that's kind of the wake up call for me in many ways, and hopefully others too. It's not so much what happened at the Field of Screams, but
Mm-hmm.
what you were talking about where you're getting all of this correspondence from people that have had similar issues at other haunts. And in many of those cases, the haunt owners likely are completely clueless as to what's going on or what took place under their noses. And
Yeah.
we as the haunt operators, once again, big, small, anything in between, we need to wake up to this possibility and we need to start taking steps to mitigate.
Yeah. And it's not just this issue. The way women are treated in general in haunts needs to improve.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Absolutely. There's so much
There's a lot of room for growth.
yeah. Absolutely.
Well, and one of the things about the haunted attraction industry that I think makes it kind of vulnerable to this is we've always looked at ourselves as the freaks, the weirdos, the outcasts. We're the weirdos. We're the, and that's what we have in common. We're all the weirdos and misfits of the world, and that's what unites us. And so when someone comes along and says, hey, we've got a problem with such and such group, women, people of color, LGBTQ, whatever, are not getting fair treatment in the haunt industry, the first response you always hear is, but we're the freaks and weirdos. We just take everyone. We're haunters. And it's like, yeah, but that doesn't mitigate those particular issues.
Right.
It's called intersectionism. People
What
can be more than one thing, Everybody is more than one thing, and it includes haunter.
Yeah. And so we've got a comment in the chat
Okay.
that I think we should take a moment to talk about. It says it should scare the shit out of them, meaning owners and managers, for the right reasons. Some, I think, are afraid of the bad press it would bring. some don't want to know what's going on unless it's a liability for them, and it is. And then it continues. But I think that, it's much worse press to say that your haunt had a sex ring at it and you did nothing about it,
Yeah. Well, and I'm kind of a weird believer that if you do the right thing for the wrong reasons, you still did the right thing, kind of. So if it takes the fear of bad publicity to get people to take charge of this, get owners to take charge of this, fine, whatever. We should be doing it because we want to, because this is supposed to be an industry of joy. We're supposed to make people happy. Ourselves, our actors, our customers, everyone's supposed to be happy. This is the opposite of that.
Yeah.
We should be dealing with it first and foremost because we don't want people to suffer, especially people in our industry. So I think that's literally item one right there. And yeah, it's a matter of right and wrong. And I'm not someone that thinks in terms of right and wrong on many things, but this is definitely a right and wrong issue.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not a gray area here.
Yeah. And like when you were telling me about the things Jeremy said and the jokes that they were making, I recoiled. And maybe it's my 42-year-old ass not able to even get a word in edgewise with the TikTok-loving teen community. But I would never talk to a teen that way.
It just...
Come to think of it, I don't think I would talk to any of my haunt actors that way.
Looking back, because now I am kind of around the age where they were back when it was happening. It's... especially when I was having to recount everything to the investigators and all of that. I am so disgusted because I was just so enraptured by it all when I was a child because I had no clue. And just looking back, being, their age that they were, it's like, it physically makes me recoil. Like you said, I'm just like, oh, what? Like, I'll see a 15, 16-year-old now and I'm like, that is a baby.
Yeah.
I have nothing in common with that, nor do I want to, like, I just don't understand the appeal of a child sexually. I know.
Yeah, I agree completely with that. And it is.
Yeah, a big like narrative that he's been trying to push after all of this has come out is like, it was a legitimate relationship and we were in love, blah blah blah. I'm like, do you realize that makes you sound worse? Like, that's disgusting.
There are points in one's life where a 9-year age differential means nothing. Like if I'm 42 and I want to date a 51-year-old, that doesn't mean anything.
Fine. Yeah.
We're at the same stage of our life, and that's really what this is about. It's the power dynamic. Not only as the adults, but as the owners, they had a huge power advantage over the teenagers that they were supposed to be looking out for, the kids they were supposed to be looking out for, and they abused that power to the ends that we've are all now very familiar with.
That's why it's labeled as a sex ring now, because there were so many victims because there were these men in a position of power completely abusing it to have their way with these with these children, and it's just it's vile.
Yeah, and so much to go into with it, and it's and I know we could talk about this literally for the rest of it.
Yeah,
we could go on forever and ever.
I don't blame you. It's a lot. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've already put in the chat that this probably will not be the only episode on this topic.
Absolutely not. No, we're coming back to this. I feel a strong urge to come back to it sooner rather than later. But next week's the news. But maybe shortly after that we can piece together something else on it. But yeah, one of the things people have to realize is that teenagers, especially 14, the early teenagers, want to feel older more than anything. That is what they crave in the universe. If you want to get a teenager to do anything, tell them it'll make them seem older. And that goes from, and then you can abuse that so easily is the problem. I mean, you could use it to make them clean their room, or you could literally abuse it like they did. And that was the secret. They made teens feel older and more mature than they were, more adult.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like this weird special attention that all young girls were just hooked on, and it was so exciting. And they would tell us, "Oh, you're so mature for your age. You're not like the other girls." Blah blah blah. Just doing just throwing everything out there that they could, and it worked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was still attempting to join the chat. Oh,
It never stopped.
I know, but
Hear it, but my cat is outside my door right now, just meowing up a storm. I hope.
Yeah.
well, Haunt Weekly, the cat podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Soon enough, the cats will just kill us and take over the podcast anyways. Might as well lean into it.
Fine with me.
Yeah.
But yeah, getting back on topic though, we have only got a few more minutes, but it's so frustrating to me that nobody said anything, and that apparently when someone did say something in 2015-ish or whatever, that it wasn't followed up on, at least not in any significant way. Nothing came
Right.
of it.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Because a big part of this is the victims have to push for something to happen.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
It happen. And I mean, it took me damn near 10 years to come forward about this. It wasn't easy, and I don't blame the other victims for not coming forward, but it was.
yeah, and this is something that I don't think a lot of people understand. I mean, I've read the statistics on this multiple times over, but when dealing with sexual assault of any type, whether it's child predator or just adult on adult sexual assault, only about 10% or less than 10% of the cases are reported at all to anyone.
Yeah.
And that's not just about who goes to the police. That's reported, period.
Mm-hmm.
And then of those, about only 10% of those actually have anything happen with them.
Right.
So you get down to basically 1% or less than 1% of sexual assaults where anything happens in response, anything happens to the assaulter. And yeah, that's not just a haunt industry problem. That is a nationwide global problem.
Yeah.
But we can do something about it in our house, and we should.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it is a global issue, but it does not need to be inside our little globe. Yeah. And it should not be. It has no place here.
If we are as awesome of a community as we say we are, and we do say we're awesome a lot in this community, this is how we can prove it.
Yeah. Yes.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, because sexual abuse is not awesome. It's the opposite.
No.
It's horrible.
It's horrible, yeah.
And yeah, it is a nationwide problem. No, I don't know. Go ahead.
No, it's okay.
No, I don't. I don't have a specific thought. Just it's all of the dread.
Yes, and then we are nearly out of time, so we'll probably should be wrapping things up shortly. But yeah, I understand completely that this is a difficult thing, and it's especially difficult to articulate. I mean, it's like I said, you've rendered me speechless, and I'm very used to talking for an hour straight part of this podcast, so that says something. But yeah, this is something we need to address, and like you said, we're going to do another episode on this sooner rather than later. I'm tempted to see if we can find someone who can speak to this from like an HR perspective and actually talk about how we can train people and what signs we should be looking for.
Yeah.
From HR, human resources training side, not human resources, hiring and firing side, like what my dad was once upon a time.
No, I get that.
I think maybe we should seek someone out like that, because that would be great information.
Yeah. Do you have any last thoughts or words for victims who may still be, not saying anything?
Yeah. A big thing I've been trying to push potential victims out there. Everyone seems to be under the impression that you need to have some kind of physical documentation proof to prove what happened to you, and you don't. I had a few photos from back in the day, but the metadata was weird, so nothing was we were able to use it. But this still happened, and I still received justice. You don't need to have kind of concrete proof. All you need is your word, because there were other people who had already come forward as well, and the stories lined up and matched. So it just, it worked. You don't need to have any kind of proof or anything, and you just need the courage to do it.
Yeah, it's
That
good
is
advice.
really good news.
That's really good news and really
Yeah.
good advice too.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, everyone, I know this has been a serious and heavy episode, but it's a very important one, and I'm very glad, Maddie. I knew I was going to do it once.
Yeah.
I knew I was going to say Maggie just once.
Happens all the time.
Maddie, thank you, Maddie, for coming on and discussing about this. I want to say on a personal note that hearing that this has not robbed you of your love for the haunt industry makes me so incredibly happy.
Yeah.
You are a definite asset to our community. And thank you for not only your courage and coming forward about this and your support and your strength for others, but thank you for, having the strength to still be a haunter and still be there scaring the crap out of people with us every Halloween. So, I mean, it means so much to have you as a member of the community.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I was doing it before him, and I'm going to keep doing it after him.
That is the best attitude I think you can have about that. That's
Yeah.
perfect. Well, on that note, everyone, thank you very much for joining us. This has been episode 343, Sexual Assault and Haunting. You can catch more Haunt Weekly at hauntweekly.com, Haunt Weekly on Twitter, Haunt Weekly on Facebook, and youtube.com/Haunt Weekly. You can also find us wherever you get your podcasts from, so definitely find us wherever. But until next time, I'm Jonathan.
I'm Crystal.
And we will see you all next week.